Hello, everyone, and welcome to Body Bags. I'll be your reviewer for today. I'm Lonnie from Tats, and um, yeah, this is going to be kind of different for me because I'm not actually reviewing an Italian horror movie this week. No, actually, I'm reviewing a movie that came out in 2021, and I really enjoy this movie. The movie I'm talking about is Ghostbusters Afterlife. Now, this movie, here's the thing, okay? I'm a huge Ghostbusters fan. I love the Ghostbusters. Well, I love the first two Ghostbusters movies, but I do have them all. It's like I have this one on 4K, but I also have the original on 4K. I have Ghostbusters 2 on 4K, and yes, I even have this one on 4K. And mainly, I got this one, just curiosity mostly. And the funny thing was the pawn shop when I was in there just looking to see what kind of movies they had. They had a few 4K Blu-rays there, and I was just looking at what they had, and they were all the 4Ks they were selling were like $8 each, and this one was $8 too. And then when I came across this one, they were like, you know what, if you want that one, $2, it's yours. So I was like, no, just out of curiosity, I'll go ahead and watch it. I'll give it a fair chance. And um, sorry, I wasn't really that impressed with it, but this one I am impressed with, and um, as I was one of those kids, I was really lucky. I was one of those kids in the 1980s that my parents actually took me to see the original Ghostbusters in theaters, and it was a fun experience. I really enjoyed it. I love the movie. I still love it to this day, and like I was one of those kids. Like, oh man, this movie's so good, and I was one of those kids. Like you remember episode one from season two of Stranger Things. In the first episode, I think it's Halloween. The four kids dress up as the Ghostbusters. That would have been me. That would have been me because I love, the original Ghostbusters. I love the music. I love the humor, the horror aspect of it, and everything else. And because of that, that's one of the reasons why I enjoy this movie is because this movie definitely captures the horror and the comedic tone, but also the horror element of it. And this feels much more like a real sequel or a requel, if you will. And this feels much more like a better follow up to the original film and the original sequel as well. Okay, now the movie starts off. We see, it's like you don't really see his face because obviously he's no longer with us, but clearly it's meant to be, because of the hairstyle and, the glasses and the beard and everything else. Clearly it's meant to be Egon Spangler. Where is he at? Harold Ramis's character from right there. He's got the same hair. Got the hairstyle. Of course, it's old and gray, but he's got like the beard and everything. It basically looked pretty close to Harold Ramis when he passed away. So Egon, he is. It turns out he's in this town in Oklahoma, and it turns out that the Gozer and Ivor Shandor and everything from the first movie apparently they found a way to come back, and he went out on his own, and he tried to warn the other Ghostbusters. As the story goes, he tried to warn the other ones, but they didn't listen to him. They felt that because of what happened in the first movie that they took care of, Gozer and Zool and everything else, they didn't have to worry about that anymore, but he knew better. And so he struck off on his own. And the one thing they did that at first I was kind of like really leery about this because it's become a trope or a cliche in, sequels and requels that are coming out today, that what you're doing is, especially when you're introducing a new cast, you're doing a passing of the torch, okay? And one of the things that a lot of these new sequels are doing when they're trying to reboot a franchise is they take one of the original franchise characters, and usually the character is an old white man, and this character ends up running out on their family. They become a failure. They become a coward. Things like this. We've seen it plenty of times. They did it in the sequel trilogy with Han Solo, Luke Skywalker. They did it in the new Scream movie with Dewey. All of a sudden, these characters who were heroic in the previous movies, now all of a sudden they're scared, they're cowards, and and everything. And then they get this chance to redeem themselves, and it doesn't pan out. and they're just kind of left as these pathetic losers and stuff like that. And that's what I thought the direction was going with this movie first. You see that Egon, he's in a truck, he's trying to get back to his farm, and he's got his farm booby trapped and everything to try to catch, well, it's basically it's Gozer, from the first movie. And he tries to capture it, it doesn't work, something goes wrong, and he ends up basically dying of a heart attack. And now we're introduced to our new characters. We have Callie, who it turns out is Egon's daughter. And Egon did the thing, where he ran out on his family years ago and everything to do this, to deal with, Gozer and all this kind of stuff. But we find out, though, that he did it only because it wasn't that he didn't love his daughter or anything like that. He didn't do it because he was a coward or anything. He did it because he wanted to keep his daughter safe. And he wanted to just try to keep her as much out of this as he possibly could. So at least, Egon has a little bit more of a better representation than, like Dewey from the new Scream movie, or, Han Solo or Luke Skywalker from the sequel trilogy or something like that. At least he's treated a little bit better in this movie. Has a little bit more of a heroic arc to his character. But anyway, so now you have Callie, and she's living with her son, Trevor Finn Wolfhard. So yeah, and that's going to be another thing too. When you put Finn Wolfhard in these kind of movies, and you put him with a group of other kids, well in this case mostly teenagers and stuff, and you still keep getting those like Stranger Things vibes, and this movie definitely has a bit of a Stranger Things vibe to it with Finn Wolfhard in it. But he's good. He starts off as kind of like the whiny kind of obnoxious teenager, but his character does get better on. And we're introduced to who's really the main character of the movie is Phoebe Spangler. And Phoebe, played by McKenna Grace, she's 12 years old, and you could definitely tell like she has the qualities of her grandfather. She's kind of socially awkward, but she's very smart. She's very into science. You could tell just by just looking at these characters, you could tell that they are. That's one thing that Jason Reitman, who co-wrote the script and directed the movie, the son of the late great Ivan Reitman, not just Harold Ramis, but to Ivan Reitman as well. Rest in peace, both of you. But so you could tell this family, they are related to Egon Spangler, and so they're being kicked out of their Chicago apartment because they can't afford to pay the rent. Well, Callie gets word that her father died, and they're going to go to try to settle his estate. They want to try to take the house that he has and sell it and everything, and use the money to go back to their life and pay their rent and things like this. So they go out to this farm, and it turns out it's very dilapidated, it's kind of run down, all this kind of stuff. But we also find out that kind of Callie just she wasn't able to keep the apartment and everything, so they're kind of stuck there. They have to stay in this farmhouse that her father had, and so they're trying to do the best they can to make it comfortable and everything else, and they're noticing there's kind of like these earthquake like tremors and stuff like that. And of course, when Trevor and Phoebe find out that they're pretty much stuck here for a while, they're not very happy about it at all. And they're going. We do get a great little cameo from Annie Potts as Janine from the Ghostbusters films, and she comes in and she kind of gives a little bit of exposition and what happened with Egon, and that he that there was really no money, and that kind of just things just kind of fell apart and all this kind of stuff. So that's just it. They're kind of in dire straits at this point, so they're kind of stuck there. Well, anyway, they go to that night they go to a kind of like a Sonic drive-in, and Trevor sees this girl, Lucky, and beautiful African American girl, and he's immediately smitten with her. So he decides he wants to get a job at this drive-in restaurant so he can be close to her. And so the two of them, they start to get to know each other, and Phoebe, she ends up basically going to summer school, which she doesn't really need it or anything like that. Her character is pretty smart, just kind of like something for her to do really. And so she goes to the school, and it turns out that the teacher, who's teaching the summer school class, his name is Gary Gruberson, and is played by Paul Rudd, who, I really like Paul Rudd in this movie, but I will be honest with you right here and now, if you are a Paul Rudd fan, you might be a little bit disappointed because he's not really in the movie as much as you think he would be. He does get a bit of screen time, but it's just he's just not really a really huge character in the realm of the story. So anyway, so they're there on the farm and all this. And anyway, Gruberson is he's the kind of teacher that I would have wanted when I was, in school, because his idea of teaching a class is, he brings in the TV and the VCR and he puts on movies like Cujo and Child's Play and everything. Like, this guy would have been my favorite teacher. I would have nominated this guy Teacher of the Year every year. But anyway, it turns out that he's a seismologist and that he and Phoebe get to talking, and he's very impressed with Phoebe. He likes her. He sees that she's very smart and everything else, and the two of them strike up a friendship. And then also too, we get to the one kid out of the four youngsters in the movie that if there was one that really kind of annoyed me and kind of got on my nerves, it would be the character of Podcast. I keep wanting to say iPod, but no, it's Podcast. And because his whole thing is he just goes around and his whole life is just, he wants to do podcasts all the time. He always wants to talk about ghosts and aliens and the unknown and all this kind of stuff. And it's just kind of like, and he's kind of the character who kind of ends up always saying like the wrong thing at the wrong time and everything else. So if there was one character I thought did kind of annoy me a little bit or get on my nerves a little bit, it would have been iPod. See, I told you, I keep wanting to say iPod, but his name's Podcast. But anyway, so he meets Phoebe, and the two of them strike up a friendship. And so while they're at the farm, Phoebe starts to realize that the ghost of her grandfather, Egon Spengler, is still around. And little bit by little bit, but between Phoebe and Trevor, they start finding things like Trevor discovers in a barn the Ecto-1. And Trevor, turns out he's actually good at working on cars. So like in his spare time, he starts working on the Ecto-1 to get it working so he could have a driving car and stuff. Phoebe, in the meanwhile, she starts, she's hanging out with Podcast. And the two of them, it turns out that there's kind of like a secret kind of a basement where Egon had kept a lot of, the equipment and things like that the Ghostbusters use. He kept a lot of the jumpsuits and the proton packs and the ghost traps and everything else. And so, Phoebe takes the ghost trap to the summer school, and her and Podcast are talking about it. And Gary Gruberson, he comes up and he's like, "Whoa, that is so cool!" And I was like, "You don't know about the Ghostbusters and all this kind of." So he gives them, kind of the backstory and shows them YouTube videos, which you can see it's clips from the original movie and things like that. And so now Phoebe realizes, who her grandfather was. And so, with the help of her grandfather's spirit, she starts to, learn how to, fix a proton pack and get these things working and everything. And that's one of the things that, I think a lot of people probably really liked about this movie too, is the fact that even though Phoebe is smart, she's capable, she can do a lot of things. She's definitely not like a quote unquote Mary Sue, where, she's not flawless. She makes mistakes. She has, lapses in judgment and things like this, but it doesn't matter because she's such a good character. And, she's trying to be more socially acceptable. Like, she keeps making jokes, and it's kind of funny because the only person who ever laughs at her jokes really is Podcast, but she's trying to make jokes. She's trying to be more, socially, so she's but that's the thing, it's she doesn't just sit there and look at the proton pack. It's like, oh, I know how to fix it. And she fixes it in 2 seconds, never breaks a sweat doing it. It's she has to learn, and she does learn. And with the help of her grandfather's ghost, she is able to learn. And she starts practicing, her and Podcast, they, practice with the proton pack and stuff. Well, Gruberson takes he takes the ghost trap and, accidentally, he wants to see if it works. And so he's hooking up to car batteries and stuff, and they're out by the school buses and everything, and he does actually get the trap to open up, but it starts unleashing a lot of the spirits that are caught within, and so now, and there's this one here, which, yes, it does definitely resemble Slimer, but in this one, it's a ghost that eats metal. It's like biting metal bars and things like this, and they end up calling it Muncher. But you could tell it definitely does kind of make you think of, Slimer. But so anyway, so they're trying to, and you have the scene where Trevor, he gets the Ecto-1 fixed and everything, and so. So now Trevor, Podcast, and Phoebe, they're, they're going through town. It's a fun scene to watch, and they learn how to catch and trap a ghost the way that their grandfather did. But of course they get into trouble, and Phoebe gets into an argument with her mom, and her mom is, and it's like, Callie, it's like, her character, she is against Egon, but it's understandable why she would be, because she feels her dad didn't love her, her dad abandoned her, just didn't care about her, didn't care about his family and everything else. But eventually, like, she does start to see that he did care, that, when she finds his secret workshop, and that, he had pictures of her grown up, and drawings that she did and everything else, that she does find out that she really meant something to him, that he really did love her. And then, as the story unravels and everything, I don't want to give too much away for, any of you who haven't seen it, but, and at one point, so like Phoebe and Trevor and Podcast, they get put in jail, and it turns out that Lucky, her dad, is like the sheriff, but, Lucky kind of like taunts Trevor a little bit, but you could definitely see that these two like each other, that there is a chemistry between them, and that's the thing. I think, like I said, with the exception of Podcast, the other three characters are really good. I like these characters. I like the dynamic between them. I like, the funny, witty banter and the one-liners that they have with each other, and everything else. They're really good kid characters, And but at one point, you do get and that's the thing, I'm trying not to give away too much, but you do get cameos from original cast members in this movie. You do get because at one point Phoebe's like, well, we're in jail. Don't we get a phone call? So, of course, he says, who you going to call? And she ends up calling, Dan Aykroyd, Ray Stantz. And so he kind of explains to her kind of like what all happened, that there was a falling out between, between Egon and the rest of, between Venkman and Stantz and Winston. And, but they all ended up going on to, just basically going on living their lives and, and everything. And, but, she's kind of explained that, ghosts are kind of running rampant in this town and all this other kind of stuff. And so, but, so anyway, so now we do get to see that, that Gozer is coming back, and, you do start to get, you can see like on here, you see the little Stay Puft Marshmallow guys. So you get the Stay Puft Marshmallow guys get back. You get Zool and Vince Clortho. They come back and everything else. I would say if that was probably one argument a lot of people would have had with this movie, is this movie kind of hits the member berries just a little too much. And, instead of creating kind of like a new, like a new force that they have to fight or whatever, they kind of just bring back, the evil force from the first movie and everything. And then our new characters have to fight them. And it's like, first of all, this video is already almost 19 minutes. So it's like, I think I'm going to kind of leave it at that, but just, this movie is so good, and it is a lot of fun, but that's the problem. It's like, really, this movie is for the fans. So if you're not really a huge fan of this movie, then this one, I'm not saying you wouldn't enjoy it, but I'm just saying I don't think it would have the same resonance with you if you're not a fan of this one. So you kind of, so I would actually say, yeah, I mean, I would suggest watching both of these, to get into this one, but it's not exactly necessary, but, I would say it would help. But this movie is definitely for the fans, but I really enjoyed it. I love, a lot of the tribute. But see, the thing is, what this movie did really well, in my opinion, as opposed to this movie, see, what this movie did was this movie did two things that I thought really, really doomed it. Okay, first of all, it didn't say, here's what we're going to do. Okay, we're doing a new Ghostbusters movie. here's what we're going to do. We're going to respect the past, but embrace the future. We say, okay, yeah, this is classic. Everybody loves it, and everything else. We're not going to step on this movie's toes, but we are going to take kind of like, we're going to kind of use this as a springboard and kind of work our way into this and kind of make this the new Ghostbusters. I think if they had done that, it definitely would have been fine. Another thing that this movie did wrong, in my opinion, is this movie really does end up going for just an overall just really silly tone, and that doesn't work. For Ghostbusters to work, for these movies to work, what you need is you need the element of both comedy and horror. If you go for just, if you sit there and you try to make a Ghostbusters movie, and you just try to play it like it's the most serious thing in the world, it's not going to work. And the same thing applies here. If you just make a movie that is incredibly silly and just goofy, just overall goofy tone, it's not going to work either. Because like when you watch this movie, for example, you got this character here, Jillian Holtzman. She's kind of the Egon Spengler in this version. And yet when you look at her character, there is nothing at all that gives you the impression that she would have the skill or the intelligence to create the technology that Ghostbusters use to create the equipment and everything else. It's like nothing in this movie, nothing in these characters shows that like they are capable of doing it, because they're all too busy being, oh my God, look at me, I'm so goofy, I'm so funny, ha ha ha, look at me, I'm so funny and goofy and everything else. And this movie just has there's hardly any horror element to it. And this definitely has a horror element to it. You do get, there's even actually a kind of a gruesome scene in the movie when Gozer comes back and encounters Ivor Shandor. J.K. Simmons plays that part. He's in everything now. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying he's in everything now. But this movie definitely does keep, this movie understands that the humor comes between, the relationship between the characters and the humor and the banter and everything else. But the ghost element, that needs to be taken seriously. And that's what this movie does. The ghost is treated as a real threat. In this movie, it's just treated as a big joke. So yeah, this movie just, they did it right. And that's just my opinion. But I would definitely say, yeah, and, personally, I think that's one of the reasons why when they just put out the 4K box set here a while back, Paul Feig was like, oh, you need to include this, even though this is a way, like these movies don't matter. We did our own thing, but you have to include this in the 4K box set and everything else. And then ultimately, Sony is like, okay, here's what we'll do. We'll make a compromise. We'll include it, but it's going to be in the digital code. We're not including the 4K with the box set with the rest of these, because this is, the Ghostbusters, this is its own thing. So, but anyway, yeah, Ghostbusters Afterlife, if you're a fan of the original movie, you love the second one too, or even just, love the first one, but even, okay, the second one's okay and stuff. Yeah, I definitely think, you're going to enjoy Ghostbusters Afterlife. It does, that's what this movie does. It respects the past, but it embraces the future. It did what a good requel or sequel should do. You introduce new characters and you make these characters interesting. It's like, these characters, it's like, the characters of, Phoebe. Phoebe's an awesome character. And if they ever make another movie with Phoebe and Trevor and Lucky, I would like to see that. I would like to see them come back because they're actually fun and they actually, have a good day. It's like, yeah, I'll even take a podcast, bring him back too, but I'll say, yeah, just, but this is what the movie did great. It respects the past but embraces the future. So I'm actually, if they kind of keep it within this world, I'd be looking forward to another Ghostbusters film. So if you're going to go back to this, it's like, I'm sorry, I don't think anybody's going to, yeah, you might get a small percentage of people who care, but, keep it tied to this universe, you'll be fine. Anyway, that's pretty much going to do it. I'm sorry, this video went way too long, but yeah, I just, I really liked the movie, and, I talked to Rob and Glenn. They already said that they liked it too. So, but anyway, so yeah, if you like Ghostbusters, definitely give Ghostbusters Afterlife a chance, and you're going to have fun with it. So that's it. So if anybody took the time to watch this, I thank you for doing it, and I appreciate you for doing it. I honestly hope you enjoyed this video. I do apologize that it went on for so long. If you like this video, please leave a like. If you haven't already, go and subscribe to the Body Bags channel. We have a different reviewer, one for every day of the week. We have a different reviewer for every day. I do the Saturday reviews. Everybody's great. We have a great team. Everybody's doing great stuff. And that's it, everybody. So take care. Have a good night, and I'll see you later.